You've likely seen the memes before. When the zombie apocalypse comes, everyone will run and hide, except gamers. We've been waiting for this our entire lives. It's cringeworthy nonsense, but if you genuinely believe it, Dead Rising is here to make the case that you wouldn't survive. Unless you've got brilliant DIY skills or you're just a photojournalist, you're going to be zombie food. The Dead Rising series challenges players to overcome hordes of zombies as they swarm a bustling town or city. Each game revels in the ability to use whatever you can find in the environment to fend off the undead hordes, whether that's toy guns to an Uzi inexplicably found in a mall's fountain. However, we are here to decide which of the Dead Rising simulations of zombie Armageddon is the best. Aside from Chop Till You Drop, an ill-received Wii remake of the first game, we're ranking Dead Rising games and ordering them from worst to best. If you're a newcomer to the series, this list should give you an indication of where to focus your efforts and which awful games to avoid. I'm Daryl for Cultured Vultures, and here is the definitive ranking of all the Dead Rising games. Before we begin, remember to slap that like button and hit subscribe, and we'll make sure your latest dose of Zombrex is delivered to you in the mail. This video is brought to you by Fenetrans, who are totally not evil. Honest. Okay, you can put the gun down now. 7. Dead Rising 4. Oh boy, the real stinker of the franchise. Dead Rising 4's crime was that it didn't understand what being a Dead Rising game meant. Before launch, the developers spoke about how this new game is going back to what made the games fun in the past. They wanted to go back to the roots of the series in order to celebrate Dead Rising's 10th anniversary, but the end result removed key features from the formula while amplifying the destruction to basically create zombie dynasty warriors. Going back to both Willamette and playing as Frank West, you're dealing with a new zombie outbreak that's possibly more dangerous than all others. However, the time limit feature, a core part of the series, was removed, along with aspects like escorting survivors, psychopaths, and just the general difficulty. It's not uncommon for players to complete the game without dying on their first playthrough, which is just a weird feeling for a Dead Rising game, making it the de facto worst game in the entire series. 6. Dead Rising 2 Case Zero. Looking back, it makes sense why Case Zero deserves to be low on this list. It's not like it's bad, far from it in fact. Using the Dead Rising 2 engine as a base is always a good start, as the series peaked in that format, but when compared to other standalone entries in the series, Case Zero just feels bare bones. Sure, that's by design, but it means that Case Zero is a throwaway entry in a series rather than a genuine title worth seeking out. A prologue to the events of Dead Rising 2, you control Chuck Green as he and his daughter attempt to escape a zombie outbreak in Las Vegas. Unfortunately, the zombies have spread to the neighbouring town of Still Creek, and Chuck's got 12 hours to figure out an exit strategy before the army comes in to clear the entire town out. Effectively, Case Zero was a demo to Dead Rising 2 proper, with progress carrying over to the main game upon completion. It was a decent teaser, but appetizers are not enough to sustain you long term. 5. Dead Rising 3. Dead Rising 3 was one of the killer apps for the Xbox One at launch, though that isn't saying too much given the state of the console's launch lineup. Rise, Son of Rome wasn't exactly setting the world on fire, while Fight Within was just a motion-controlled dumpster fire. Dead Rising 3 was, if nothing else, a great technical showcase for what Microsoft's console could do. The amount of zombies on screen and the level of detail and lighting that were utilised within Dead Rising 3 was some of the best seen in gaming at that time. It's just a shame that the rest of the game wasn't up to the same standard as the previous entries then. Like Case Zero before it, Dead Rising 3's issue isn't that it's a bad game. The gameplay builds on what was established in Dead Rising 2, allowing you to craft combo weapons on the fly while increasing carnage was pleasing for a while. Unfortunately, protagonist Nick just doesn't have the same charisma as Frank or Chuck, and the story somewhat suffers for it. There's no real memorable moments either, and that's a shame. Dead Rising 3 is a good entry, but it could and should have been better. At least there was the Super Ultra Dead Rising 3 Arcade Remix Hyper Edition EX Plus Alpha, a daft multiplayer DLC that was an incredibly fun love letter to Capcom fans. 4. Dead Rising 2 Case West. Considering that Dead Rising 2 contained a prologue in the form of Case Zero, it made sense that Blue Castle Games, who would become Capcom Vancouver, would decide to crank out an epilogue in the form of Case West, changing the canon ending of the main game. Looking back, making a true ending into its own purchase isn't a great look, but at least it was a standalone offering and was more feature complete than Case Zero. Taking place directly after the events of Dead Rising 2, the game sees Chuck Green collaborate with original protagonist Frank West as they infiltrate a secret facility with the hopes of clearing Chuck's name. While this release includes full co-op gameplay and the reintroduction of photography as a gameplay mechanic, Case West would also offer a glimpse into what the best game in the series would become. We'll get to that. Case West is also a brief excursion in comparison to other games on the list. The banter between Frank and Chuck carries the game forward and just makes it feel more special as a result. It's just nice to see two good lads working together, honestly. 3. Dead Rising. It's perhaps controversial to put the original Dead Rising in third place, but that's by no means a knock on this classic Capcom game. Going back to play Dead Rising today is still incredibly enjoyable, with the overall environment feeling like a zombie killing playground littered with secrets. Getting those old synapses firing again to remember details like the katana hiding on the awning in Paradise Plaza is a wonderful feeling. The only issue is that it's a bit dated, with clunkier controls and certain mechanics that were improved upon in later entries. Escorting survivors felt a bit easier in Dead Rising 2, making this one a hard game to come back to, but it's still worth the journey. Playing as a freelance photojournalist Frank West, you've infiltrated the town of Willamette, Colorado as the military have cordoned off the entire region. Once inside, you find that zombies are running roughshod over the American suburbia, with both survivors and undead congregating at the town's mall. Now it's up to you to get to the bottom of what's going on and unleash the truth. Unfortunately, you've only got 3 days to do it before your scheduled escape helicopter arrives. With time of the essence, there's only one thing to do. Strip to your skivvies and smack some zombies with a toy sword. That's just what a man who's covered wars would do. 2. Dead Rising 2. Depending on personal preference, you might want to switch this entry with the original Dead Rising, but for our money, Dead Rising 2 improves on the formula established in the first game in plenty of key ways. The combo weapons add a new dimension of discovery to the game, along with making you feel more powerful, while the inclusion of co-op gave Dead Rising 2 more replayability as you enjoy the game with a friend. Also, the quality of life update of an icon above a survivor's head to tell you when they're in range to travel to a new area is a godsend. God bless you, little green icon that saved us from so much potential frustration. Playing as former motocross champion Chuck Green, you're trapped in Fortune City, a carbon copy of Las Vegas, as zombies are on the loose once again. Yes, the same crap happened to the same guy twice. Worse still, you're being framed for the whole thing. At least that's a new wrinkle for good old Chucky G. With just 3 days until the firebombing of Fortune City, you've only got a short amount of time to clear your name, uncover the conspiracy, and make sure your daughter doesn't become a zombie. No pressure, but you could always give your daughter a pet tiger to keep her happy. Number 1. Dead Rising 2, Off the Record. If Dead Rising 2 earns the second place spot for how it improved upon the original game, it's only fair that Off the Record claims the top spot. A brave choice for a follow-up game, Off the Record is a non-canon alternative universe version of Dead Rising 2 where Frank West is actually the protagonist instead of Chuck Green. It's a weird one, but it essentially leads to a better version of Dead Rising 2 with a new area to explore, new weapons, and remixed story sections that twist events in a way that caught Dead Rising 2 players off guard. While the main campaign was brilliant already, the real masterstroke for Dead Rising 2 Off the Record was the sandbox mode, which ditched the cases and story in favour of letting you muck about in Fortune City to your heart's content, with plenty of challenges to complete along the way. When future games adopted the sandbox / lack of time limit approach for their main story, it didn't feel like Dead Rising, but not here. Offering a limitless sandbox as an extra mode allowed for Dead Rising 2 Off the Record to have its cake and eat it too. With a brilliant story mode, a fantastic sandbox mode, and the fact you can play in both online co-op with the second character controlling Chuck Green too, this is the ultimate Dead Rising experience. If you can only play one Dead Rising game, make it Dead Rising 2 Off the Record. And there you have it, that is our list of the Dead Rising series ranked. Did you agree with the list? Did you disagree? Anything you would have swapped around? Sign up in the comments down below, let us know what you're thinking. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel and tap that notification bell. And for the full written version of this article, plus many more, check out culturedvultures.com. And with that said and done, we will catch you in the next one, but until then, caw.